The alarm screamed through the throne chamber before I could finish my morning wine. I am Prince Velthari of the Keshar Dominion, third heir to the Obsidian throne, and in all my 300 years of life, no alarm had ever dared to sound during my private hours. The crystal goblet slipped from my claws and shattered against the black marble floor. Red liquid spread like blood across the stone, and I stared at it, feeling something cold twist in my chest. What is the meaning of this? I roared, rising from my seat. My advisor, an old warrior named Harkin, burst through the tall doors. His silver armor was half fastened, his breathing fast. In 40 years of service I had never seen him afraid, but now his yellow eyes were wide and his long fingers shook as he held out a data crystal. My prince, he said, the council has called an emergency session. All 12 crowns must attend now. Now, I almost laughed. The council of 12 crowns met only 4 times a year. An emergency meeting had not been called in over 200 cycles, not since the Great Silence Wars. What could possibly be so urgent? Harkin swallowed hard. A distress signal, my prince, from the Rim colonies. The HFY have lost an entire world. I paused. The HFY were our loyal servant, a strong insect species we had bred for mining and frontier work. They held the outer edges of our territory, places too dangerous for more important races. For them to lose a world was strange, yes, but an emergency meeting. There had to be more. An attack, I asked. Pirates? Some beast species breaking loose? No, my prince. Harkin's voice dropped to a whisper. The attackers are new. Unknown. The scouts call them humans. The word meant nothing to me. I shrugged. On my formal robes, fastened the hip gold chains of my rank, and followed Harkin through the long halls of my palace. Servants dropped to their knees as I passed, but I barely saw them. My mind was racing through every star system I knew, every species in the catalogs. Humans, the name tasted strange in my mouth, soft, simple, almost funny. My personal shuttle carried me to the council spire, a great tower of black glass that floated above our capital city. Through the window I watched the other princes arriving in their own ships. Prince Zaruth of the Iron Hives came in a vessel shaped like a great beetle, its surface crawling with his warrior drones. Princess Alara of the Solari Conquered arrived in a ship of pure golden light, and there, descending from the high clouds, came the dark vessel of Prince Korvax, eldest of us all, who had crushed 17 rebellions before I was even born. We gathered in the great round chamber. 12 thrones of different designs circled a central holographic platform. I took my seat and looked at the faces of my fellow princes. Some looked angry at being called here, others looked curious, none looked afraid. Why should we be afraid? We were the 12 greatest powers in this arm of the galaxy. Our empire stretched across thousands of stars. Our bloodlines had ruled for so long that most of the younger races believed we were gods. Brothers and sisters, said Prince Korvax, his voice deep and slow, matter has been brought to our attention. Let the evidence speak. The holographic platform lit up. An image appeared, and for the first time I saw a human. I almost laughed out loud. It was a pathetic 2 legs, 2 arms, soft pink skin with no armor or scales, no claws, no fangs. Worth mentioning, small eyes set in a Flat face, it wore simple cloth wrapped around its body, and it carried a small metal tool that looked more like a child's toy than a weapon. The thing was standing in a field of green plants looking up at the sky and smiling at us. "This," said Corvex, "is a human. They come from a single world called Earth in a small blue system on the rim. They have begun to spread 3 weeks ago. They arrived at the TCHKV colony of Vesak Prime. There was a disagreement over mining rights. The humans claimed the world was theirs by first discovery. The TCHKV claimed it by right of Dominion law." "And?" asked Prince Zaruth clearly. "Bored. And the TCHKV are gone," said Corvex. "Simply all of them. The colony is now human." A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber, but it was not fear. It was offense. How dare these soft creatures raise a hand against our servants? "Then we send a response," said Zaruth. Standing up, "I volunteer. Give me 3 dreadnoughts and I will clean the infestation myself. 1 week, that is all I need." The council agreed. Zaruth left that very day. I remember watching his fleet depart, 3 massive warships with crews of 100,000 each, and I felt nothing but quiet amusement. The universe was about to learn once again that the Dominion did not forgive insults. 3 weeks passed. I almost forgot about the matter. I was busy with affairs of my own province, collecting tributes from 7 worlds, judging a dispute between 2 of my noble houses, attending the birth ceremony of my youngest niece. Life was good. Life was normal. Then the escape pod arrived. It came tumbling out of warp space just outside our home system, spinning in. Damaged, our patrol ships caught it and brought it in. When they opened it, they found Prince Zaruth inside, alone. No crew, no ship, just him. I was summoned to the medical bay to see him. What I saw, I will never forget. Zaruth had always been the strongest of us, a giant of a warrior, 7 ft tall, his body covered in hard black plates of chitin, his arms thick enough to crush stone. He had personally killed a Draken war beast with his bare hands during the border wars. He had never lost a single battle in his long life. The thing lying on the medical table was still Zaruth, but something inside him had broken. His eyes were open but empty. He did not respond to voices. He did not respond to touch. The doctor said his body was healthy, strong as ever, but his mind was gone, locked somewhere deep inside where no one could reach him. I leaned close to his face. "Brother," I whispered, "what happened out there?" For a long moment nothing, then his lips moved. A single word came out, so quiet I almost missed it. "Humans." That was all he said. That was all he would ever say again. The council met again the next day. This time there was no laughter. This time the chamber was silent as we watched the few recordings that had survived from Zaruth's fleet. We saw his 3 dreadnoughts arrive at the human world. We saw them begin their attack, and we saw what happened next. It should have been over in minutes. Dreadnought could level a continent. 3 of them could sterilize a planet. Yet somehow the humans fought back. Their ships were smaller, uglier, patched together from many different designs. Their weapons were crude by our standards, but they did things we did not expect. They fought without pattern. They used tactics we had no name for. They lied over communication channels, pretending to surrender, and then striking when our ships lowered their shields. They rammed our vessels when their weapons failed. They did things that made no sense to us. One by one, the dreadnoughts. Clear's throat died. The last recording showed a human pilot flying his damaged fighter directly into the engine core of Zaruth's flagship. The human was smiling as he died. "It is decided," said Korvax in the silent chamber, "a full expeditionary force will be assembled, 40 warships, the finest of our combined fleets, and it will be led by..." His eyes turned to me. "Prince Velthari." I stood and bowed. Inside I felt a mix of pride and unease. Pride because I had been chosen for such an honor, unease because I had watched Zaruth's fleet burn and I could not explain how it had happened. "I accept," I said. My voice was steady. "A prince must always sound confident. The humans will learn what it means to strike at the Dominion. I will bring their world to its knees. You have my word." The other princes struck their chests. Approval. The decision was made. That night I walked alone in my private garden. And GT snorts. And GT, the twin moons of our home world hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the silver flowers that bloomed. Only in darkness I thought about Zaruth, about his empty eyes, about the single word he had spoken. Humans. What could make a warrior like him break so completely? I had watched the battle recordings 100 times. Yes, the humans had fought well. Yes, they had won against the odds, but warriors lose battles all the time. They do not return home as empty shells. Something had happened out there that was not captured on the recordings. Something Zaruth had seen with his own eyes, something that had taken a 300-year-old warrior prince and stolen his mind away. I pushed the thought aside. I was not Zaruth. I would take 40 warships, not 3. I would not underestimate these creatures. I would strike hard and fast. And I would return with human prisoners in chains to present before the council. The preparation took 2 months. 40 of the greatest warships in the Dominion gathered at the shipyards above my home world. Each one was a monster of black metal and plasma cannons, larger than small cities, crewed by elite warriors from a dozen different races. My flagship, the Throne of Cinders, was the largest of them all, 6 miles long, carrying enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. The day we departed, the sky above my capital was filled with ships. Millions of citizens gathered in the streets to watch us go. I stood on the bridge of my flagship and looked down at my home world, knowing that when I returned, I would be a hero greater than any in living memory. The prince who had punished the humans. The prince who had shown the galaxy that no one, no matter how strange, could stand against the Dominion. Set course for the human frontier, I ordered. The captain saluted. "Yes, my prince." "Warp drives ready, fleet formation complete." "Then let us begin." The stars stretched into lines of light as we jumped to warp, 40 ships moving as one, heading toward a small blue world on the edge of our maps, a world whose people had insulted us, a world whose people would soon learn the cost of their actions. I should have felt triumph. Instead, in the quiet moments between my duties, I kept thinking about Zaruth's empty eyes and the word he had spoken. Humans. Somewhere ahead of us they were waiting, and for the first time in my long life I wondered if perhaps we did not understand what we were flying toward. The journey to the human frontier took 12 days at maximum warp. 12 days of training, of strategy meetings, of studying every piece of information we had on these strange creatures, and the more I learned, the more I began to feel that something was wrong. My intelligence officer was a thin, sharp-eyed woman named Vasana. She had served the Dominion for 80 years and had studied more alien species than any other living expert. On the 4th day of our journey, she came to my private quarters with a data tablet and a troubled expression. "My prince," she said, bowing low, "I have been reviewing the reports on humans. May I share my findings?" "Speak." She placed the tablet on my desk. Images appeared above it, floating in the air. Human world, green forests, blue oceans, and creatures, so many creatures. Earth is what we would classify as a death world, Vasana began. The gravity is high, the atmosphere is thick, the weather systems are violent, with storms that can level entire cities, and the biosphere, my prince, is unlike anything I have ever studied. She pointed to images of various Earth animals, massive predators with rows of sharp teeth, creatures with venom strong enough to kill a dozen of our warriors, beasts that could crush stone with their jaws. Every one of these creatures evolved to hunt and be hunted, she said. Earth is a world where every living thing must fight to survive, and the humans, my prince, the humans evolved at the very top of this chain. I leaned forward. They hunted these beasts. They did more than hunt them, Vasana said quietly. They tamed some of them, kept them as companions. This creature, here they call it a dog, it is descended from a predator that once hunted them. Now it sleeps in their homes and protects their young. They did the same with another predator, a large feline. They brought both into their families. I stared at the images. A human child, no more than 4 years old, sleeping peacefully with a massive furred creature that had fangs longer than my fingers. The creature's eyes were half closed, lazy and content, but I could see what it was, a killer, domesticated, made into a pet. "What kind of species?" I whispered. "Tames its own predators." "A very dangerous one, my prince," Vasana said. "And there is more." She showed me the history of humanity. And as I watched, my unease grew into something colder. The humans had spent their entire history fighting one another, not in the honorable way of the Dominion, where battles were structured and rules were followed. The humans fought dirty, they fought long, they fought with a cleverness that seemed almost sick. Every weapon they had ever made was first used on other humans. Every strategy they had ever developed was first used against their own kind. Their history was a long chain of wars, each one teaching them new ways to defeat each other and the humans who survived. Each war taught their children the lessons, generation after generation. They had refined the art of conflict against the most dangerous enemy they knew themselves. By the time they reached the stars, Vasana said, they had already fought every kind of war imaginable, against equals, against superior forces, against inferior forces in their own cities, in deserts, in oceans, in the cold regions of their poles. They have a saying, my prince, I found it in their old records. It goes, the only thing harder than killing a human is killing a human who knows you are trying. I sat back in my chair. I thought about my 40 warships, about the careful battle. Plans my admirals had drawn up, plans. Based on standard tactics, plans based on the assumption that we would be facing a new primitive species. Vasana, I said slowly, send this information to every captain in the fleet. I want every officer to study the humans. No more assumptions, no more jokes about soft mammals. We are entering something we do not fully understand. She bowed and left. I sat alone for a long time, staring at the floating image of that human child sleeping beside the great furred predator. 8 days later, we arrived at the human frontier. I had expected to face a defensive fleet. I had expected a fight at the edge of their space. Instead, we entered a system called Meridian, one of their outer colonies, and found nothing. The system was quiet. A single small scout ship hung near the largest planet, watching us. It did not run. It did not communicate. It simply watched. Destroy it, ordered my fleet commander. No, I said quickly. Do not fire. Hail it. The communication channel opened. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then a face appeared on our screens. Human male, young, maybe 30 years old by their reckoning. His hair was dark and short. His skin was pale. His eyes were calm. Hello, he said simply. His voice came through our translators without trouble. I was wondering when you would get here. I was taken aback. You were expecting us? Of course, the human said. He smiled slightly. We have been expecting you since the moment your friend Zaruth showed up. We knew you would send more. Species like yours always do. Species like mine. My voice was dangerous now. Empires, the human said. Old ones. Proud ones, the kind that have never lost. You do not know how to handle loss, so you always send more ships, hoping that more will change the result. He tilted his head. It will not, by the way, but we understand you have to try. It is how your kind learns. I wanted to kill him then. I wanted to order every cannon in my fleet to fire on that single small ship, but something held me back. Something in his calm voice, something in the way he spoke to me, a prince of the Dominion, as if I were a child who had made a small mistake. What is your name, human? I asked. Call me Daniel, he said. I am what you would call a diplomat, though in our culture we have a saying, a diplomat is just a warrior who has not drawn his weapon yet. I am Prince Velthari of the Keshar Dominion, I said, drawing myself up to my full height. I command 40 warships of the finest make. I have come to punish your people for the destruction of our colony at Vesek Prime. Surrender now and I will be merciful. Resist and your world will burn. Daniel listened politely. When I was done, he nodded. Thank you for the formal declaration. He said, I appreciate the tradition. Now let me offer you our formal response. He held up a small device. On it was an image. It was a map of our own empire. Every major world of the Dominion marked in detail, every military base, every shipyard, every defense installation. Everything. We have known where you are for some time, Daniel said softly, longer than you have known about us. Your empire has spies in it, Prince Velthari, not humans, others, the species you have crushed and enslaved and turned into servants. They do not love you. They have been feeding us information for years. We know your home system. We know your defenses. We know the names of your children. The bridge of my flagship went silent. Every officer around me had stopped moving. But we have not attacked, Daniel continued. We are not like you, we do not strike first, we wait. We watch, and when someone comes at us, we respond with everything we have. That is who we are. That is how we survived. He lowered the device. Prince Velthari, I am offering you one chance. Turn your fleet around, go home. Tell your council that the humans are not to be touched, not ever. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. This is the last offer you will ever receive. My pride roared up in my chest. I was a prince of the Dominion. I had never turned away from any enemy in my life, and this soft creature, this mammal, this worm was lecturing me from a single tiny ship. Destroy that vessel, I said coldly. As you wish, said my fleet commander. 40 warships opened fire at once. The space around the small human ship lit up with the energy of 100 suns. The blast was so bright that our view screens automatically dimmed to protect our eyes. When the light faded, the human ship was gone. And that was when the real battle began. From every direction at once, the space around us exploded with movement. Hundreds of human ships came pouring out of hidden positions behind the planets, moons, inside asteroid fields, from under the planet's atmosphere itself. They had been there the whole time, waiting, watching. We had not seen them because their technology for hiding was better than anything we had imagined. The first wave hit us before my fleet commander could even finish shouting orders. Human fighters, small and fast and ugly, swarmed our larger ships like stinging insects. Our cannons were designed to destroy massive warships, not tiny swift fighters. The humans knew this. They used it. They flew in patterns we could not track, firing at the seams in our armor, at the vulnerable points we thought no one knew about. And their larger ships, the ones we could see on our scanners, did not attack the way we expected. They did not come in a line. They did not form a proper battle formation. They scattered, each ship fighting differently, each captain making their own choices. It was chaos. It was madness. It was brilliant. Within 30 minutes, I had lost 8 warships. Fall back, I shouted. Full retreat. Jump to the rendezvous point. The surviving ships of my fleet tried to pull back. The humans did not pursue us far. They let us go. That somehow was worse than if they had chased us. They let us run because they knew they did not need to finish us. They knew we would come back, and they knew they would win again. I sat in my command chair as my fleet limped away from Meridian. 8 ships lost, thousands of my warriors gone, and I had not even scratched the human world. I had not even landed a single blow that mattered. Sound off casualties, I ordered quietly. The reports came in. They were devastating. I looked out at the stars ahead of us. Somewhere back there on that blue-green world, Daniel the human diplomat was probably still alive, probably still smiling. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I did not recognize at first. It took me a long moment to understand what it was. It was fear. I had been in battles before. I had faced enemies who outnumbered me. I had fought beasts that could crush a warrior in a single blow. None of those had frightened me like this. The humans had scared me, and I knew with a cold certainty that the council was not going to accept my retreat. They would send me back with more ships, more warriors. They would Demand that I crush the humans no matter the cost. And I would go because I was a prince. And I had no choice. But somewhere in my mind, a quiet voice was beginning to whisper, a voice that sounded a little like Zaruth before he went silent forever. What if we woken up? The council's response to my failure arrived before I had even returned to Dominion space. A fast courier ship met my damaged fleet at the rendezvous point, carrying a single message. It was short. I was not to come home, not yet. Reinforcements were being sent. I would meet them at the border system of Karnal and lead a second strike, this time with 100 warships. This time with another prince at my side. I read the message 3 times sitting alone in my quarters, then I crushed the data pad in my claws and threw it against the wall. 100 warships against the humans. After what I had just seen, the reinforcements arrived 4 days later, and with them came Princess Allura of the Solari conquered. I had not seen Allura in 10 years. She had changed little. Her skin was still golden, glowing softly from within like sunlight trapped in glass. Her eyes were large and bright blue. Her hair fell like liquid gold down her back. She was beautiful in the way a blade was. Beautiful, sharp, and dangerous, and made for only one purpose. She walked onto the bridge of my flagship with her personal guards, 12 soldiers in shining white armor. She did not bow to me. Princesses of the Solari conquered bow to no one. Velthari, she said, her voice cool. The council sends their regards. They also send a message. You will lead the ground forces. I will command the fleet. Normally I would have argued. I was senior to her by 20 years. The right to command was mine, but after Meridian I did not have the heart to fight for it. As you wish, princess, I said, but there are things you must know, things you cannot learn from reports. I took her to my private meeting room. I showed her the recordings of the Meridian battle. I showed her Vassana's research on human history, on their strange biology, on their long pattern of war. Allura watched it all in silence. When the last recording ended, she sat very still for a long time. You are afraid, she said finally. Yes. I have never heard you say that word before. I have never had reason to say it before. She looked at me with those bright blue eyes. For a moment I thought I saw something in her face that might have been worry. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold pride that all princesses wore like a second skin. The humans are clever, she said. I accept that, but cleverness is not the same as strength. We have 100 ships. We have soldiers from 12 races. We have weapons they have never seen. Cleverness will not save them from that. I wanted to believe her. I truly did. So I nodded and said nothing. We set course for the human world of New Terra, a colony world slightly larger than Earth itself. According to our intelligence, New Terra was the center of human military production in this sector. If we could take it, we could. Their ability to respond to us. We could force them to come to us on our terms. That was the plan, at least. The journey took 9 days. During that time I watched Allura carefully. She was confident. She held war meetings every morning. She drilled her soldiers every afternoon. She reviewed battle plans. Every evening she was doing everything right. But on the 6th night I caught her standing alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She did not hear me approach. She was speaking quietly to herself. How do they fight like this? She was whispering. How does any species learn to fight like this? I turned and walked away without letting her see me. When we arrived at New Terra, the system was empty. That was the first warning sign. No patrol ships, no defense platforms, no automated weapons. The humans had simply pulled back, leaving the planet undefended. My scanners showed a few small civilian ships near the planet itself, but nothing military. It is a trap, I said immediately. Of course it is a trap, Ilara replied. But we must still enter the system. The Council demands results. We cannot turn away from an empty system and claim victory. She was right, so we moved in slowly, carefully, every scanner on every ship working at full power, searching for anything hidden. We found nothing. 3 hours into our approach, we reached orbital range of New Terra. The planet spun peacefully below us, blue and green, and covered in white clouds. It looked so much like Earth that for a moment I felt confused. The humans had taken their home world and made copies of it. Across the stars, they were spreading. Prepare the landing craft, Ilara ordered. Prince Valthari, take your ground forces and secure the capital city. I will hold the fleet in orbit. I gathered my warriors, 50,000 of them, from the finest regiments of the Dominion, armored in black and gold, armed with the best weapons our engineers could make. They boarded the landing craft, and together we descended toward the human world. As we fell through the atmosphere, I looked out the viewport at the city below. It was large and sprawling, made of tall buildings of glass and steel. Roads ran through it like silver rivers. Parks dotted the landscape, green and beautiful. It looked like a civilian city, a peaceful city. Where were the defenses? We landed in the main square. My poured out of the transports in perfect formation, guns up, shields ready, every regiment in its proper place. The city was empty. No humans, no vehicles, no movement at all. The wind blew through the open streets, stirring papers that had been left behind on outdoor tables. Cafes stood with doors open. Market stalls were still full of goods. It was as if every living person had simply walked away all at the same time not long ago. My prince, said my ground commander, huge warrior named Gorath, something is very wrong. I know, I said. I ordered the warriors to spread out, to search the buildings, to find any humans who might be hiding. We moved through the empty city like hunters, sweeping block by block. We found nothing. The humans had evacuated completely. Every home was empty but still warm. Every store was stocked but unmanned. Beds were made. Meals were set on tables, half eaten. It was ghostly. After 2 hours of searching, my scanners picked up a single signal, a building in the center of the city. Something was there. Something was transmitting. I took a team of my best warriors and went to investigate. The building was a government center, tall and official looking. The main doors were unlocked. We entered cautiously. Inside, everything was quiet. Our footsteps echoed on the polished floors. In the central lobby, on a large round table, sat a single device, a small screen with a speaker attached. As we approached, the screen lit up. A human face appeared. Not Daniel this time. A woman, older, gray hair cut, short, sharp eyes that cut through me like blades. Prince Valthari, she said, my name is Miriam. I am the governor of this colony, or rather I was until this morning when we evacuated every citizen to safety. Where are your people? I demanded. Safe, she said, far from here. We saw you coming 9 days ago. We had plenty of time to move them. You will find no one on this world to hurt. Then why are we here? Why not defend your city? Miriam smiled slightly. It was a cold smile, the smile of a hunter who had set her trap and was waiting for the prey to step into it. Because you are not here to take our city, Prince Velthari, she said. You are here to die. Goodbye. The screen went black. I spun around, out, everyone out, back to the landing craft now. My warriors did not understand at first. They hesitated. I screamed at them to run, to leave everything, to get back to the ships immediately. We were halfway back to the main square when the bombs went off. The humans had filled the entire city with explosives buried in the foundations of every building, hidden under every road. They had evacuated their people days ago and left the city as a massive trap. When we entered, they simply waited until we had spread out enough, and then they detonated everything at once. The ground opened up beneath us. Buildings collapsed in waves. The air filled with smoke and dust. My warriors screamed as they were swallowed by the falling debris. I was thrown off my feet by a blast, slammed into a wall, my armor cracking. I could not see. I could not hear. I could only feel the world shaking apart around me. Somehow I made it back to one of the landing craft. Gorth was there, dragging me inside. Most of his face was burned. His right arm hung limp, but he was alive. He pulled me into the craft and shouted for the pilot to launch. We rose up through the smoke. Below us, the city was gone, just rubble and fire. 50,000 of my warriors had gone down. I did not know how many were coming back. Not many. We reached the fleet in orbit to find it under attack. While we had been caught in the city trap, human ships had appeared from somewhere I still do not fully understand. Maybe they had been hiding behind the planet's moons. Maybe they had come out of the planet's own atmosphere. It did not matter now. They were here, and Alara's fleet was in chaos. I made it to my flagship. I took command of what I could. We fought for 6 hours. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like a storm. They used tactics we had never seen. They would retreat only to appear behind us. They would seem to be losing, then suddenly overwhelm an entire wing of our fleet. They were not a fleet at all. They were a pack of predators, each one hunting on its own, but somehow coordinating as a whole. By the end of the battle, we had lost 60 warships. Alara's flagship was one of them. I watched it burn from the bridge of my own vessel. I watched her escape pods launch. I watched them vanish into the debris field. I ordered a search. We found 3 of them. Alara was not in any of them. She was gone, a princess of the Solari. Conquered, one of the 12 crowns, dead or captured. I did not know which was worse. We limped back toward Dominion space, with 40 ships remaining out of our original 100. My warriors were broken. Many of them had seen things on New Terra that they would never speak of. The human city, the trap, the way they had been hunted through the ruins by small teams of human soldiers who had been waiting in the basements of buildings that were still standing, waiting to finish anyone the bombs had missed. I sat alone in my quarters as we fled. I thought about what Miriam had said. You are here to die. She had been right. I thought about what Daniel had said. Species like yours always send more ships, hoping that more will change the result. It will not. He had been right too. And as I sat there in the dim light, I thought about Prince Zoruth, about his empty eyes, about the single word he had whispered before falling silent forever. Humans. I was beginning to understand. We arrived back at the Dominion border 3 days later. The council was waiting for me with a new message, longer this time, more detailed. I read it slowly, my claws shaking just a little. The council was furious. The loss of Princess Alara was an insult beyond measure. A full war was now being declared against the humans. 500 warships would be assembled at the homeworld shipyards. Every prince of the Dominion would contribute forces. Within 2 months, the greatest fleet in Dominion history would be launched, and I would have one final chance to redeem my name. I would not command it. That honor would go to the eldest of us, Prince Corvex himself. I was to be his second, his advisor, the prince who had faced the humans and survived twice, which now made me the most experienced living commander in matters of human warfare. I should have been relieved. I was being given a chance to avenge Alara, to crush the humans with overwhelming force, to restore my family's honor. Instead, I felt only cold dread. Because I had looked into Daniel's calm eyes, I had seen Miriam's cold smile. I had watched 50,000 warriors die in a city that had been prepared for us like a meal on a table, and I knew something that the council did not yet understand. 500 warships would not be enough. Nothing we had would ever be enough. The humans were not a species we could defeat. They were something else. Something we did not have a word for yet. But we would all learn the word soon. And we would learn it in a way that none of us would ever forget. The 2 months of preparation passed like a bad dream. I spent most of my time at the great shipyards above the Dominion homeworld, watching the fleet come together. 500 warships, the greatest war machine our civilization had ever built. Captains from every province, warriors from every noble house, the finest generals and admirals ever to serve the 12 crowns. Every day as I walked among the ships, I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt tired. I was not sleeping well. I was seeing things in my dreams. The burning city of New Terra, Alara's ship breaking apart, Daniel's calm smile as he told me we would not turn away, Miriam's cold goodbye as she activated the bombs beneath my warriors, and Zoruth, always Zoruth, his empty eyes staring at nothing. Prince Corvax was different from the rest of us. He was over 500 years old, the oldest of the 12 crowns. He had fought wars before most of us had been born. His body was no longer as strong as it once was, but his mind was still sharp as any blade. He wore a long black cloak over for armor, and he walked with a cane of polished bone topped with a silver skull. He was terrifying in a quiet way. He did not need to shout. He did not need to threaten. When Corvax spoke, everyone listened, because you knew that whatever he said had been thought about carefully, and it would be done. The day before we launched, Corvax called me to his private chambers. I went expecting a final briefing. What I got was something quite different. He was sitting by a window looking out at the stars. He did not turn when I Entered, he simply spoke. Sit, Velthari. I said. Tell me, he said, what you truly saw. At Meridian. And at New Terra, the full truth, not the reports, not the official account. What you saw with your own eyes, what you felt. I hesitated. A prince did not admit weakness, but Korvax was not just a prince, he was the oldest of us, and there was something in his voice that demanded honesty. So I told him everything about Daniel, about the hidden fleet at Meridian, about the empty city and the trap, about the way the humans fought like predators, like packs, like a storm, about how they had beaten us not with better weapons but with better understanding, about Alara's face before her ship was destroyed, about my own fear. Korvax listened without interrupting. When I was finished, he was silent for a long time. I have been reviewing their history, he said finally, the full history, not just the summary Vasana prepared, the deep history. Do you know what I have learned? No, Elder. Their first weapons were stones. Korvax said, just stones. Their second were sharpened sticks. With these they walked across their entire homeworld and killed or drove out every species that tried to stop them, not just the predators, every species, other kinds of humans too. Yes, there were other kinds, primitive cousins. The humans we face today are not just one species. They are the survivors of a war against their own cousins, fought over tens of thousands of years with nothing but stones and sticks. I stared at him. Then they learned fire, Korvax continued. With fire they took worlds that were too cold for them. Then they learned farming. With farming they built cities. Then they learned metal. With metal they built armies. Every step forward was used immediately to make war against other humans. There has not been a single generation in their recorded history without a war somewhere on their planet, not one. Tens of thousands of years of continuous warfare against themselves. He turned to look at me. By the time they reached space, Velthari, they had already fought every kind of war that can be imagined. They had soldiers who survived those wars, and those soldiers taught their children, and those children fought new wars, and so on. They are a species refined by endless war against the smartest enemy they know themselves. And we, I said slowly, are not smarter than them. No, Korvax agreed, we are not. We are simply older, and we have better technology for now. For now. Korvax smiled. It was a tired, sad smile. Do you know how long it took them to go from stone weapons to space travel? About 10,000 years. Do you know how long it took us? 300,000 years. They move faster than us, Velthari. They learn faster, they adapt faster. Their technology is already catching up to ours in some areas, and in others they are ahead. I felt cold. Then why are we going to war with them? I asked. Korvax looked back at the stars. Because the Council will not accept any other answer. They believe that if we strike with enough force, the humans will surrender. They believe that no species can stand against 500 warships. They are wrong, but they cannot be told. They would not listen if I tried. So we are going to die. Many of us will, Korvax said simply. Perhaps most, perhaps all. I have made peace with this, Velthari. I am old. I have lived a long life. If I am to die, I would rather it be against an enemy worthy of respect than in my bed as a Forgotten old man, but you are young. You have many centuries ahead of you, so I am telling you this now in private so that you will know. He looked at me with those ancient yellow eyes. When the time comes and you see that the battle is lost, save yourself, run. Take your ship and run as far as you can. Because someone needs to survive this. Someone needs to bring the truth back to whatever is left of the Dominion. Someone needs to be the warning to the younger generations. Do you understand? I understand. Good. Korvac stood up slowly using his cane. Then go rest. Tomorrow we fly to our deaths, or most of us do. Let us be ready. I walked out of his chambers feeling like a man who had just heard the words of his own funeral. The fleet launched the next morning, 500 warships moving as one, the greatest sight the Dominion had ever produced. Citizens wept as we left, cheers filled the air, songs were sung. It was a moment of pure triumph for my people. And all the way into warp space, I thought about Korvac's words, and I wondered if any of us would come home. We reached the human frontier in 10 days. Korvac had chosen our target carefully. It was not New Terra this time. It was not Meridian. It was a place called Sol, the human home system. The place where it all began. If we could take Earth, Korvac reasoned, the humans would have to surrender. Their whole species was emotionally connected to that world. It was their beginning, their history, their mother. To take it would be to take everything. It was a good plan. It might have worked against any other species. We dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system. Our scanners immediately lit up with warnings. The system was full of things: ships, stations, weapons, platforms, defense grids. The humans had turned their home system into a fortress. Every planet had rings of defense satellites. Every large moon had ground cannons. Every Lagrange point had military stations. The ratio of military structures to the space itself was higher than anything we had ever measured. They have been preparing, said Korvac quietly from the main view screen. For how long? Asked the captain. Since the moment Zaruth attacked their colony, Korvac answered. Maybe longer. Maybe since they first heard about us. It does not matter. They are ready. We formed battle lines and moved in. The first wave of human defense came at us from the outer rings of a planet they called Jupiter. Hundreds of fast attack ships pouring out from behind the planet's massive bulk. They did not come in formation. They came in a swarm, each ship flying its own pattern, each pilot making their own choices, just like before. But this time we knew what to expect. This time Korvac had prepared. He had designed a new kind of formation for our fleet. Instead of the tight battle lines we normally used, we spread out into what he called a web. Every ship was far from every other ship, but still close enough to support its neighbors. If the humans tried their old trick of swarming and slipping through our formations, they would find that there were no gaps to slip through. Every approach was covered by at least 3 warships. The plan worked for a while. We destroyed the first wave of human fighters in less than 20 minutes. Our losses were minimal, 10 ships lost, against what would have been 100 in the old formation. Korvac smiled grimly. We are learning. But the humans were learning faster. The second wave came at us from below. They had ships hidden inside the clouds of Jupiter itself, using the gas giant as cover. They rose up through the clouds in groups of 5, and each group was different. Some used stealth technology to slip through our sensors. Some used massive shields designed to absorb our weapons. Some used speed so fast that our cannons could not track them. Each group tested a different weakness in our formation, and each group reported back what they had learned to the next wave behind them. By the end of the day, the humans had mapped out every vulnerability in Corvex's web formation. They knew which ships had weak shields. They knew which sectors had slow gunners. They knew which captains hesitated in the moment of crisis. On the second day, they hit us with everything. I watched it from the bridge of my flagship. The humans came in one massive, coordinated attack, every ship in the Sol system moving at the same time, each one aimed precisely at a weakness our enemies had identified. They did not fight at random anymore. They fought with terrible purpose. Every shot was aimed, every ship was placed, every captain knew exactly what to do. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing I had ever seen. Our web formation began to collapse. The ships they hit were the exact ships we could least afford to lose: command vessels, support carriers, medical ships. They were taking apart our fleet, piece by piece, not with raw force but with surgical precision. Rotate the formation, Corvex ordered. From his flagship, shift patterns Gamma through Omega now. The fleet tried to respond, but the humans had anticipated that too. When we shifted, they shifted with us, their attack patterns adjusting in real time. They were reading our commands somehow. Either they had broken our codes, or they had spies inside our fleet, or they were simply so good at predicting us that it did not matter. Probably all three. By the end of the second day, we had lost 100 ships. The humans had lost perhaps 30. On the third day, Corvex tried something desperate. He pulled the entire fleet back to the outer edge of the system and prepared for a massive concentrated strike at Earth itself. The plan was to ignore all the defenses, take every loss we had to take, and drive straight for the home world. Even if we lost half our ships, the other half would reach Earth and could threaten the planet itself. It was a bad plan, but it was the only plan left. We charged 400 warships moving at full speed toward the third planet, every engine burning hot, every weapon firing at any human ship that got in our path. The humans tried to stop us and they failed. We plowed through their defenses, losing ship after ship, but always moving forward. When we reached Earth orbit, we had 220 warships left, and Earth was waiting for us. The planet was surrounded by a ring of weapons platforms I had never imagined could exist, massive stations each larger than our biggest warships, bristling with cannons unlike anything in our records. These were not the weapons I had seen at Meridian. These were not the defenses of New Terra. These were something else, something the humans had kept hidden, something they had been building in secret for this exact moment. Mother of all stars, whispered my captain, what are those? The platforms opened fire. The weapons were not energy beams. They were not particle cannons. They were something new. Streams of some kind of matter that cut through our shields like they were not even there, that passed through our armor as if it were cloth, that left our warship split open with clean, precise cuts. Ships exploded silently in the vacuum, not in great blooms of fire, but in cold flashes of release as their reactors were exposed to space. Our entire front line died in the first 10 minutes. I saw Corvex's flagship caught in the fire, his ship, the oldest and greatest warship in the Dominion, built before any of us were born, cut in half by a single beam of that terrible matter. The front half of the vessel spun away, fires burning inside through the open. Cut escape pods launched. One of them was his. I saw it fly into the debris field. Then a human fighter came down and destroyed it deliberately, not by accident. They had tracked which pod was Corvex's, and they had taken him out. My communications officer was shouting. I could barely hear him. Prince Valthari, incoming transmission from the human flagship. Put it through. A face appeared on our screen, another human I did not recognize, a man this time middle-aged with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. He looked tired, sad but not triumphant. Prince Valthari, he said, my name is Admiral Harper. I am the commander of human forces in this sector. I am offering your fleet one chance to surrender. Lower your weapons power. Down your shields, stand down. If you do, we will accept your surrender and return you to Dominion space alive. I stared at the face on the screen. Why, I asked. It was the only word I could find. Harper looked at me with those tired blue eyes. Because we do not want to destroy you. He said, we never did. You came to us. You attacked our colonies. You would not stop when we warned you, so we fought back, but this is your last chance to go home. Please take it. I have no joy in what I am about to do to you. I looked around my bridge at my surviving officers, at the tactical displays showing our remaining ships. 220 had become 150 in the last 20 minutes, and we had not yet even engaged the planet's defenses fully. We were being torn apart, and we had barely begun. Corvex's final words came back to me. Someone needs to survive this. Someone needs to bring the truth back. I made my choice. Every ship of the Dominion fleet, I said. Into the command channel, this is Prince Valthari. I'm assuming command. Power. Down weapons, lower shields, we surrender. A great silence fell across the fleet channel, then one by one every ship acknowledged the order. The firing stopped. The shields came down. Our great fleet, or what was left of it, went still in the orbit of Earth. Harper nodded slowly on the screen. Thank you, Prince Valthari, he said. You have saved many lives on both sides. I will arrange for your ships to be escorted back to the Dominion border. This war from our side is over. Over, I said. We attacked your homeworld. We killed your people. You are letting us simply go. Harper's face changed slightly. A kind of grim sadness crossed it. No, he said softly. We are not letting you simply go. Your war is over. But the consequences of what you have done are just beginning. You will see. Prince Valthari, you will see soon. Enough. The channel closed. I did not understand what he meant. Not then. It took me another year to understand, and by the time I did, there was nothing left of the Dominion to save. The journey back to Dominion space was quiet. My remaining 150 warships moved slowly through the dark, escorted at a distance by human vessels who watched us. Without threatening us, the humans did not harass us. They did not even speak to us. They simply made sure we were going home, and then they turned back. I stood on the bridge of my flagship and thought about what I would say when I arrived. How do you tell a council of crowns that the greatest fleet in Dominion history has been defeated. How? Do you tell them that their oldest and wisest member is dead? How do you tell them that the humans had let us go, not because they could not finish us, but because they chose not to? I never got the chance to figure it out, because when we reached the Dominion border, there was no one there to meet us. The border posts were empty, the patrol ships were gone, the communication relays were silent. We jumped from border system to border system, each one quieter than the last. In the past, there had always been messages, news from home, reports from other provinces. Now there was nothing. We reached the first inhabited world of the Dominion on the 6th day of our journey home. It was a planet called Vestrik, a trading hub with a population of 40 billion. As we approached, my sensors showed that the world was still inhabited, people were still down there. But something had changed. The great city of Vestrik Prime no longer flew the banners of the Dominion. New flags were flying from the towers. Flags I did not recognize. I hailed the planetary government. A face appeared on my screen. It was a HFY, one of the insect species that had served us as laborers and miners for 500 years, the one whose colony at Vestrik Prime had started this entire war. Prince Valthari, the HFY said. Its many eyes glittered strangely. We were not expecting you. What has happened here? I demanded. Why is my flag not flying over Vestrik Prime? Because Vestrik is no longer a Dominion world, my former lord, the HFY said. We have declared our independence, as have most of the worlds in your empire. I felt the blood drain from my face. On whose authority? On our own, the HFY said. Simply, the humans helped us organize. They sent ships, they sent weapons, they sent teachers and builders and engineers while you were attacking their home world. They were reaching out to every species in your empire, every slave race, every conquered people, every bitter neighbor. They offered us a different path. Most of us took it. I could not speak. There is no Dominion anymore, Prince Valthari, the HFY continued, not unkindly. There is only what used to be the Dominion. The old home worlds are still yours. A few loyal systems remain, but most of what you ruled is now free, and the humans have made it clear to everyone that if any of the remaining Dominion worlds try to force us back into slavery, they will respond with their matter cannons and their hidden ships and their soldiers who never stop. I closed the channel with shaking hands. We continued home. Each system we passed told the same story. The empire had not been destroyed by the humans. It had been unmade, taken apart piece by piece. While we were away on our war, every client race, every conquered world, every subject species had risen up, not in violence, not in battle, simply by refusing to serve anymore, and the humans had made sure we could not punish them for it. When I finally reached the Dominion home world, I found the other princes waiting for me in the council chamber. They were not the same princes I had left. They had aged. Their faces were thin and haunted. Their robes were not as fine as they had been. They looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. I told them everything, the battle at Saul, the surrender, the long journey home through a collapsing empire. Prince Thuron, one of the younger ones, was weeping openly by the end. Princess Alanda, who had always been cold and sharp, stared at the floor in silence. Only the oldest ones, the ones who had known Korvax personally, seemed able to speak. "So it is done," said Prince Abassi. "The humans have won, not by destroying us, but by freeing our servants and our neighbors from us, by turning our own empire against itself." "Why did they not simply finish us?" asked Princess Alanda. "Why let us live at all?" I thought about that question for a long time before I answered. "Because they did not come here to destroy us," I said finally. "They came here to stop us, to make sure we could never hurt them again. Taking our worlds would have made them conquerors. Freeing the people we had enslaved made them liberators. They chose to be liberators. That is the kind of species they are." "But what about our honor?" someone asked. "What about the tradition of the 12 crowns?" I looked at the speaker, a younger prince, one I barely knew. "Our honor died at Saul," I said quietly, "and there is no one left to care about our tradition except us. The galaxy has moved on. The humans have shown everyone that old empires can be broken, that slave races can be freed, that the 12 crowns can be beaten. They have given the whole galaxy a new idea, and that idea cannot be unthought." The chamber fell silent. I left the council that day and did not return. There did not seem to be much point. The council had no empire to rule anymore. Our few remaining worlds could not even support the cost of maintaining a royal government. Slowly, one by one, the princes began to abandon their titles and move to quiet lives. Some left the home world entirely. Some stayed and tried to govern what little was left. Most of us simply grew old and quiet, haunted by what we had seen. I went to visit Zaruth one last time before I stopped going to the palace entirely. He was still in the medical bay, still staring at nothing. But when I came close, for the first time in over a year, his eyes moved. They focused on my face. He looked at me for a long moment and his lips moved. "You saw them," he whispered. "Yes, brother, I saw them." "Then you understand." "Yes." He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. I had never seen Zaroth weep in 300 years. "I am glad," he said softly. "It is good not to be alone with it anymore." He died that night. The doctors said his heart simply stopped. I think he had been waiting for someone to understand what he had seen at Meridian all those months ago. Once I had come and shown him that I understood, he was finally allowed to go. I buried him with full honors. The ceremony was small. There were not many of us left to attend. A year passed, then two. I lived quietly on my old estate, which now covered a much smaller area than it once had. I dismissed most of my servants. I kept only a small household. I walked in my gardens. I watched the twin moons rise over my home world each night. I thought about the humans a great deal. They did not trouble us. They never attacked again. They never made demands. They simply existed out there in the galaxy, growing larger and larger, trading with a free species that used to be our servants, building new colonies, making new friends. They had taken our place without ever wanting it. The role of the great galactic power had simply fallen to them, because all the other great powers had been broken. One day in the autumn of my 3rd year of quiet living, a ship landed at my estate, a small ship, human design. I went out to meet it because I knew who would be on it. Ambassador Harper, who was no longer Admiral but a diplomat now stepped out. He was grayer than before. His eyes were still tired, but there was a kindness in them that I had not seen during the war. Prince Velthari, he said. Just Velthari now, I corrected him. The title no longer has any meaning. He smiled a small, sad smile. May I walk with you in your garden? We walked together among the silver flowers. For a long time neither of us spoke. Why have you come? I finally asked. To apologize, he said quietly, and to thank you. Apologize for what? You won. We did, Harper said, but we did not need to take as much as we took. The Dominion had done wrong. Yes, great wrong, but there were good parts of your civilization, too, beautiful parts. Things worth keeping, in our haste to make sure you could never threaten us again. We let your whole empire fall apart. Some of it deserved to fall, some of it did not. I am sorry for the parts that did not. I walked in silence for several minutes. And what are you thanking me for? For surrendering at Saul, he said. If you had not, we would have destroyed your fleet completely. I would have given the order. It would have followed me for the rest of my life. Instead, you saved both of our peoples from that final step. You chose mercy in a moment when you could have chosen pride. Thank you, Velthari, truly. I stopped walking. I looked at this human who had beaten me, this small, soft creature whose species had broken my empire without even needing to conquer it, and I saw for the first time what Korvax had been trying to tell me all along. The humans were not our enemies. They were something more frightening. They were our future. They had done to us what we had always done to younger species. They had pushed us aside, not with hatred, but because they had grown larger than we were, and they needed the room. And now that they had the room, they were sorry for the damage. They were kind to the survivors. They were walking with old defeated princes in their gardens and apologizing for hurting them too much. What could you even do with a species like that? Tell me something, Harper, I said. When you look at us, at what we were, at the Dominion and the 12 crowns and all our long history, what do you see? He thought about it for a long moment. I see what we might have become, he said finally, if we had not spent our early history fighting each other so hard. I see what we learned to avoid by fighting ourselves first. The old humans are gone, Velthar, the ones who might have become like you. Your civilization shows me what we escaped, and I am grateful for the lesson, but also sad for you because you had no way to learn it yourselves. I nodded slowly. I understood now. I finally truly understood. We finished our walk. Harper left in a small ship. I never saw him again. I am recording this now, many years later, as an old creature sitting alone in the last of my gardens. I do not know who will hear this. Perhaps no one, perhaps everyone. It does not matter much to me anymore. But if you are listening and you are a species young in the stars, let me give you a warning. Let me give you the warning I wish someone had given us. If you ever meet the humans, do not measure them by their size. Do not measure them by their technology. Do not measure them by their kindness, which is real, or their softness, which is also real. Measure them by the long, hard road that made them. Measure them by the fact that they taught themselves to fight by fighting each other for tens of thousands of years. Measure them by the predators they have turned into companions. Measure them by the fact that they can destroy you completely and still feel sorry about it afterward. We were princes. We were the rulers of a thousand suns. We were the 12 crowns of the greatest empire in this arm of the galaxy, and when the humans came, we were horrified. We were defeated, not because they were stronger than us, though they were, not because they were smarter than us, though they were that too, but because we had never understood what they were. We saw them as prey, and they were hunters. We saw them as soft, and they were storms. We saw them as simple, and they were the most complicated thing in the universe. The humans are coming. They are always coming. They spread like water, finding every crack, like fire, finding every branch. They are kind when they win. They are terrible when they must be. They never ever stop. Be wiser than we were. That is all I have to say. That is the whole story of how the Dominion fell. How the 12 crowns were scattered. How I, Prince Velthari, the last third heir of the Obsidian Throne, became an old creature in an empty garden, speaking into a recording for no one in particular. The twin moons are rising now. The silver flowers are opening. The night is quiet and beautiful. Somewhere in the stars, the humans are still moving, still growing, still learning. May whoever finds this recording be wiser than we were. May you greet them as friends. May you never stand in their way, because if you do, you will not stand for long. No one ever does. The end.